Perfect idea. If you've got a basement, absolutely perfect.
I was down there one day, like chiseling the floor, and Pam was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm backing up my key phrase, woman."
From a decentralized location, this is the Crypto Effect.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Crypto Effect. This is February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. I hope everyone had a good Valentine's Day. I'm Brad, and I'm here with Warren, and we're here to do another episode 4 of the Crypto Effect. And we've got several topics we want to talk about. But to start off, we were going to talk about what happened last night in crypto. I noticed that around midnight, the market dropped overwhelmingly, as much as 25% in some of the tokens. I actually missed it. I fell asleep, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have been purchasing about this time. By the time I woke up the next morning, the market had already come back. It was astonishing. It literally happened within a 6 to 7, 8 hour time frame. Looking it up online, it looked like there was maybe a big dump in the Asia market. I'm not exactly certain where it came from, but it was a great buying opportunity. So anyone that got in, congratulations on you. That was huge, monumental effort because we see these drops about once every 2 or 3 weeks, and we see these small drops, 5 to 10%, maybe a 15%. But there was a huge drop in the market last night. And like I said, the majority of them came back. I don't know. Did you hear anything about that, Warren?
Yeah, I did. I saw the drop as well, and it's funny because Mondays, there's always that one day of the week where you do inevitably have that drop. But you mentioned the Asian market, which it's right around the time that the Asian market, for whatever reason, cashes out. It's always seems to be Monday mornings. But this one was a little bit more than usual as of late. But I think people see that, and there's been a lot of new people lately. So people see that and they're like, oh no, the money I just threw in there, I'm losing it already.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, this is crypto. It moves 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be these drops, and, just got to make sure you don't sell too early.
They truly are a fire sale. That's how I'm looking at it now. These are such fire sales that if you see these drops, a lot of people get scared and they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to put my money in now, or I'm going to take my money out during the drop. But this isn't, 2016, 2017, when everyone was still saying Bitcoin's a bubble. This whole crypto thing's a bubble. There is so much interest in it. There is so much hype. There is so many people looking at it, and there's so much money going into it that these drops are inevitably going to come back. I mean, it's almost a given. So when I see these now, I really do not have any fear around it. I literally think, oh my god, I just got a deal. I'm gonna get on as many deals as I can. And it was unfortunate that I didn't catch it. I really wish I caught it, because a lot of these, I saw some, I think Ethereum even was down 15%. I'll have to get on and take a look, but there were some really good sales going on. And it's already back to where it was. It may be even just a little bit higher at this point, but yeah, it was crazy. But don't have any fear in it. I think the interest is just too high at this point. So
Yeah, if you've been through any of the other drops in the past, like, I mean, gosh, I remember 2018, it started the bear season, and the bear market, and it just, I mean, it was 2 years. It was 2 years of just no price movement, really. In fact, it just kept going down and down and down for 2 straight years. And so, that was a rough 2 years. But if you've been in crypto any amount of time, you can always expect these drops. And I'm sure, Brad, you've traded, in more traditional, in the stock market, and you've probably seen similar things. Maybe not quite as volatile, but I'm sure that you've seen that in other markets in the past as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is obviously nothing new to anyone who trades. Anyone who's been trading long enough knows that there's going to be a correction or a dip or whatever you want to call it. Uh, but it always comes back. You know, there's always a great opportunity to get in, and that, you know, and people are learning, especially with as many people who are getting into investing and getting into crypto. People are starting to learning that these fear moments are moments to take advantage. I think a lot of people are starting to get that now. So that when you see it, you know, it's a great opportunity to get in.
It's buy the dip. It's
Hmm.
that's exactly what it
The
is.
motto has been going on for years. Buy the dip. Absolutely.
Yep. So yeah, just as
Yep.
Pat
So,
said, don't be nervous about that because that's typical.
yep. All right. So to get into some of our topics to start off this week, we're going to be actually talking about SIM swap attacks. This is something that you need to be aware of and know how to, get in front of to keep from happening to you. Obviously, Mastercard has confirmed its crypto integration. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about BNY Mellon announces crypto custody. So let's go ahead and get started. I guess we can get started on SIM swap attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that are not really sure what that means, SIM swapping is essentially when somebody takes your phone number, which typically can be used for what's called two-factor authentication. They take your phone number and they actually port your telephone number, your cellular number, over to their own device. And when they do that, they're able to become you and take advantage of bypassing what's called two-factor authentication.
Mhm.
And it's very dangerous because it can also lead to things like identity theft.
Yep.
Um, the reason that I really wanted to bring it up in our podcast, though, is because it's just this past week there were four, I would say, four fairly serious SIM swap attacks that occurred. Of the four SIM swap attacks, there was one that was from an employee that worked at a telephone company in Florida, and he actually was able to steal one victim's cryptocurrency, and he targeted actually 19 different people, but was able to successfully steal one individual's cryptocurrency.
Mhm.
The individual was Stephen DeFore, and he was a Florida-based telco company employee.
Mm.
Um, and as part of this, he was he had a conspirator, Richard Lee. He would actually send Stephen the customer's cell phone number, a 4-digit PIN, and a new SIM card, which they would then use for the swap. And then there was another instance where Europol said that they had arrested 10 individuals, which were they ended up carrying out a SIM swap attack, and they ended up stealing over 100 million in cryptocurrency,
Oh.
um, mostly targeting U.S. celebrities. Um, and they were able to target. They mostly targeted online influencers, musicians,
Mhm.
sports stars, and what's worse is they also targeted their families. Just a really, uh, just really terrible, because in some cases, as you saw, $100 million in cryptocurrency was stolen in these attacks.
Yep.
Um, there was also an individual that was charged for targeting Manhattan residents, and he ended up stealing more than 150,000 in cryptocurrency. So this individual's name was Joseph Chase Oakes, and he allegedly used these SIM swap hacks to access victims' online accounts.
Yeah.
And he allegedly bypassed two-factor authentication to access these accounts. And so the question, and you might be thinking, well, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, how do I protect myself from these SIM swap attacks? And I was able to find something, and there's a guy that I follow, Panama Crypto, who wrote the 10 Commandments in Crypto Security. And so I'm going to give him credit for that. But his number one is never, under any circumstances, use SMS 2FA on any of your accounts.
Right.
With no exceptions. And if you're visiting a site or especially a cryptocurrency related site, and you have no option for using either a 2FA app or a second universal factor application, then I highly recommend not using that cryptocurrency application.
Yeah.
Because to me, they they're not taking security seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, that brings up a pretty good point. Like Kraken is one that won't even let you trade on their platform unless you're using their I want to, it's Google's Authenticator app. Now, Google's Authenticator app, here's another good one, is that Google's Authenticator app actually can tie to the device itself. So that way, things like SIM swapping, it makes it almost impossible for the SIM swapper to bypass your two-factor authentication, because it's tied to the hardware device. So you would literally have to swap out all of your two-factor setup in order to do that, and they can't do that with just a SIM swap. It would take a little bit more effort to get around all that, or actually probably quite a little bit more effort. But so do not use text messaging for your two-factor.
Yeah, absolutely do not use text messages. And it kills me because I know plenty of banks that still they rely on SMF 2FA, and it absolutely drives me crazy. So you're definitely gonna, as a new user, if you're just getting into crypto and in general, just security practices, set up a 2FA, either an app, or you can also go as far as to use a universal second factor device, which I'll talk about in just a second. But definitely at a minimum, use, like Brad said, use Google Authenticator. There's Authy. There's LastPass Authenticator. There's different options out there, so use one. Now, to get into universal second factor, this is a little bit more advanced, but it is probably the most secure of the options. So what universal second factor consists of is it is first of all, it was an authentication standard that was developed by the FIDO Alliance. For those people out there that are curious about, how that came about. But the interesting thing about it is it's a device that actually plugs into your computer, that sometimes you can get an RSA token. You hit the button and you get the digits on the screen. But this is actually a device that you plug into the USB port on your computer. And typically there's a small little LED display on these, and you hit the button and you're given what's called a time-based one-time passcode. And that's typically a 6-digit number that changes every 30 seconds. So an attacker would literally have to have this device in their possession. And without that, you cannot bypass U2F. So it is by far the most secure. And also want to mention for you people out there that might be new to this, and maybe you've heard of Ledger, the Ledger wallet. And I know Brad has a Ledger wallet. I've got a Ledger wallet. The Ledger wallet actually has the capability of being used as a U2F device.
Oh, you mean the actual Ledger device itself?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I actually did not know that. It's good to know. I didn't know this could be used as a 2FA login security.
Absolutely. Yep. In the Ledger store, if you plug it into your computer and go to the Ledger under the Ledger app, if you go to the applications menu, there's an app. There's an app in there where you can install that, and it becomes a U2F device. So you would actually have to hit the button on your Ledger to allow the website to accept your credentials. But I also want to mention in part of this is Panama Crypto put in there. Also, please, for the love of God, if you're got any amount of crypto, please invest in a hardware wallet. And use it. I know individuals that have hardware wallets. I have a buddy that bought a wallet, and he has yet to use it. He keeps everything on an exchange. It is such a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then the last two items is, whatever you do not be flashy online. I know so many people that go on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on you name it, on social networks, and they can't, and they say, oh, I just got, I just bought 5 Ethereum, and it's like, okay, why do you need to tell people that? So don't be flashy and brag about what cryptocurrency you purchased, or that you've got. And then last but not least, try to remain anonymous. The last thing you want to do is dox yourself, and let people know exactly who you are, where you live. There are a lot of individuals out there that are just, they're scouring the internet, scouring social media, trying to see if they can locate somebody that they know that has a significant investment in cryptocurrency. Yeah. And you just never know. So whatever you do, try not to dox yourself, disclose your address, your location, things like that.
Absolutely. Don't make yourself a target.
Exactly. And I did want to mention too, that, and I follow this guy a lot, Andreas Antonopoulos. He produced a great, which I think is a really good video, explaining how to protect yourself against SIM swap attacks. The video was called what is a SIM swap and how to protect yourself. And we can link to this, Brad, in our show notes, because I think people could get a lot of value out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of sites out there, but we can use Antonopoulos's. But there's 7, 8, 9, 10 different things you can do to protect yourself. With one of the strongest being the 2MFA, especially a hardware 2MFA, like we were just discussing. So, there's a lot of ways you can protect yourself, and this is definitely not a joke. If you get SIM swapped, they can wipe you out. Not just Bitcoin or crypto, but in a lot of other areas. So not a joke for sure.
Yeah, and one of the things worth mentioning is that please don't think that the telephone company employees, those that work at any of the cellular carriers, care about your account.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, these guys are they're under deadlines to help support people that are calling in. And if somebody calls in and asks to have a number swapped, there's nothing that's going to stop them from just swapping that number. That's happened so many times in the past. So don't have blind faith in the fact that you're protected by them, because really, there's been so many instances where they have done the total opposite.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be much of a repercussion for this incident on the companies either. So doesn't seem to be at any loss to them if they accidentally SIM swap your phone and give your identity to someone else. So interesting.
Right.
All right. Oh, do you have more on that topic?
No, actually, I was just going to lead into the next one.
All right.
So the other one that I wanted to mention is the Mastercard has confirmed its crypto integration and said it expects to bring stable coins onto its payment network. This is actually really big news, because I think this gives people the flexibility to use cryptocurrency. And from what I read, I think that Mastercard is planning to use stable coins to do this. So I don't actually think we're going to see, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am. I don't actually think we're going to see specific cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, any of the things that Brad and I've talked about in the past. I think we're going to see a stable coin, possibly like USDC or Tether or Day, one of these.
Mastercard, so they're going to let merchants accept payments in crypto. So that just kind of gives them exposure to the space, it seems like. But they're going to use something a little bit more stable that doesn't have as much fluctuation in the crypto market. But yeah, another big player to the game, which is interesting, that they're opening up their platform to the blockchain, which, everyone's doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I think Mastercard sees the writing on the wall, just like a lot of these other companies are starting to, and I think they just want to give their customers a flexibility to be able to use something. Maybe the next generation doesn't really want a bank account per se, but rather maybe they want to hold stable coins, and to be able to use those on the Mastercard network is great. I think it's big news.
Yeah, that is actually big news if you think about it. I mean, because I don't know of any other credit card or bank currently accepting a crypto. Is there? Is
At this
Mastercard first?
at this point, no, not that I've heard of either. But I do think you're going to see, obviously, I think this is going to also follow, and you're going to see, possibly Visa, Visa has talked about doing this too. But I think you're going to see Discover and maybe American Express and some of the other big payment networks follow suit as well.
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, that what we've been saying for like a while now, or at least maybe not on the podcast, but just in general, is that the reason a lot of people don't use crypto or Bitcoin or any of these is because they get it and they're like, okay, well, what do I do with it now? I've
Right.
got it. Okay, but I can't go to Amazon. I can't do anything. I can't go get gas with it. What am I supposed to do? And we've been saying the second this becomes mainstream, the second that it's as easy as using your Bitcoin to purchase something or pay something off or do any of these things, the ball's just going to start rolling. And
Absolutely,
I
yeah.
think these are those steps that we're seeing, these like little tiny baby steps, and it's not going to go away. It's just going to continue to grow interest. But
Right.
yeah, that's a huge thing. If you really think deep about it, that's a huge.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because if you kind of think about it from the standpoint of the way we've thought about holding Bitcoin, and a lot of other people are thinking about holding Bitcoin, a lot of them don't want to spend it. They're like, I want to hold my Bitcoin, but I have a hard time spending it. It's hard time yeah, exactly. Just hold. HODL, I guess I should say.
It's my new shirt.
Nice.
Exactly. I was going to use it to the end, but I'll go and talk about it now.
But so people don't want to spend it, and that's another reason that I think it's good that Mastercard is putting stable coins on their payment network, and not so much focusing on a specific cryptocurrency. And that kind of brings me to the next topic, which is, of course, I think this was just as equally important, as that we had news that BNY Mellon announced that they're going to start to custody crypto, and this is America's oldest bank. So to me, this kind of says a lot. It's not some new bank. This is a bank that's been around for many years, and I found it interesting that they announced this past week that they plan to custody crypto for institutional clients. And so they plan to they see these institutional clients making these big moves, and so obviously they see that there's an importance here of being involved in it too. So I found that to be interesting.
Yeah, BNY, the world's largest custodian bank with some 41 trillion in assets in its safekeeping, is moving into crypto. That is Oh my God. So yeah, we've got like, when did this come? This just came out February 11th, so 3 days ago. So within the last 5 days, excuse me, February 10th, it was the Mastercard announcement, 2021. February 11th, we hear BNY. So here we go, two big banks jumping into the crypto world. I mean, the ball is rolling. The train is leaving the station. This thing is getting on.
It's leaving the station, and eventually it's going to get very difficult to buy Bitcoin. At least I believe it's going to get very difficult to buy Bitcoin at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
We're already starting to see, we almost hit 50,000 on Sunday, and we were very close to hitting 50,000 on Sunday. And as Brad had talked about the opening of the show, is that we were very, very close, and then we dipped, and now we're sitting at around what, 47 or 48, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, 40. We're at 47, so we're actually down 2.3% within the last few hours, at 47.7.
But those dips are being purchased and bought up very quickly.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so when people do panic and they start to sell their Bitcoin, they're really selling it back to, I believe they're selling it back to the institutional investors, because these guys are not going to panic and sell. They're going to hold. That they're in it for the long term. And then the last thing I wanted to mention that I saw this past week, because it's a project that I follow and I like it. It's been one of probably the most used decentralized finance app that I've used, is Uniswap. And Hayden Adams, the creator of Uniswap, on a Clubhouse this past week, he mentioned, which I found kind of interesting, that in addition to the deployment on layer 1 for Uniswap version 3, he's also planning on pushing Uniswap version 3 out to layer 2. This would be absolutely huge for Uniswap, because it takes as we know from using it, the fees are outrageous. We talked about this last week. The layer 2 platforms offer way cheaper fees. So I can imagine that Uniswap's volume is going to go through the roof once they move to layer 2. And I know I'll use it probably 10 to 20 times more than I do now if they make that move to layer 2.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about what I found interesting this week. One thing that I've had for a long time was a Binance coin called JewelSwap, and I've mentioned this on some of the other videos that I've done, and then my reward video where I had Joel D and didn't even know I had it, which was pretty interesting. Thanks to Warble for updating me on that one. But one of the coolest things that I found out on this was that JewelSwap has their staking platform on their website, info.jewelswap.com, where if you own any of their coins, you can stake on their site for some pretty good rewards. I'm earning like $5 a day or something like that. I mean, a pretty good amount for just letting Joe Swap borrow or stake my coins on their platform. So that's definitely something to check out. If you're on, the Binance Smart Chain, or if you're on Kraken. I also noticed that KuCoin has a ton of coins and allows all kinds of staking.
Yes.
And I don't know why I've not been paying attention to it before. Maybe I just didn't fully understand the rewards that came with staking. And we'll get into a video, I think, more in depth about staking in a later episode. But this is something to definitely take advantage of. So I jumped into staking full fledged, and I've been staking a few other coins, but the rewards that are on the Binance Smart Chain are great, and that's something I just learned. So I've been taking advantage of that.
And the fees are so cheap.
And the fees are cheap, which is what makes it so great.
In fact, just before the show started, I just claimed is I too am using the Joel Swap platform, and I claimed some of my staking rewards, and I think the fee was like 70 cents
Mm,
compared to the typical fee that we see on the Ethereum mainnet, between $30 to $50. So
yeah. One other, and then one toy. I'll talk about. I'm going to talk about one toy that I noticed that this week that was really cool. If anyone's in the, you know, getting different cool little crypto toys, something that's actually very useful. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Warble. I just found this out yesterday, and one of the biggest problems I have in the wallet, keeping my wallet secure is your, oh my goodness, what do they call it? They call it
oh, the key,
the key. So well, it's not just a key, it's
the seed phrase.
yeah, your key phrase. So whenever you sign up for a wallet, you have to have a key phrase, and what it is a bunch of words that are lined up in a specific order, and you've got to keep those words kind of kept somewhere, and that key phrase belongs um, to that specific wallet. So if you have different wallets, all these key phrases get confusing, and I've got like 4 wallets, and now all my key phrases are actually mixed up. But at least I have them, but it gets confusing. This is actually a hardware key phrase, and so you can put your keys inside of it, and it shows that it's hacker proof, shock proof, waterproof, fireproof, all this stuff. But what it is you take your different key letterings, and you can actually put your phrase in there and have that belong to that specific wallet. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's a little expensive, probably a little bit more expensive than it's I don't know if I can say if it's what it's worth. What it's worth is depends on how much is in your wallet. But it's a really cool tool to help you keep your key phrases, accounted for. So that they're
That's
not
pretty cool.
sitting on your phone. Because if they're sitting on your phone and you get SIM swapped again, you're kind of screwed. So a cool, really cool tool. Especially if you just got one wallet and you just need one key phrase, it's a perfect utility. So that's my cool gadget of the week that I've found.
Nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if you are just starting out, as Brad said, make sure to back up your key phrase. It is the one thing that can absolutely wreck you, especially if you lose that and you ever need to recover your hardware wallet. You're out of luck without a key phrase. And
Yep.
again, I know plenty of people that have written it down on a piece of paper and put it in a safe or something along those lines. But again, if there's a fire, you're kind of out of luck. But in the case of what we just saw from Brad, that's a nice option.
It is a nice option because what I've been doing is I've been taking a picture and then printing it out and then writing which one wallet it belonged to. But then I'm like, where did I put my, if you're not super organized like I am not, it can be kind of hectic to keep up with all these seed phrases. But it's, yeah, a really cool tool.
I chiseled my key phrase into my basement steps. The only problem
Nice.
is,
That's a good one. Perfect idea. If you've got a basement, absolutely perfect.
I was down there one day, like chiseling the floor, and Pam was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm backing up my key phrase, woman."
For anyone who doesn't know what a key phrase is, it's your last stop chance to get back into your wallet. If you just happen to forget your password, the only way back in is through the seed phrase. You've got to have this phrase of words and who knows what all different phrases can come together. But if you lose your password, I mean, I guess the chances of you remembering your PC, you better have that seed phrase somewhere written down,
Especially if you have
somewhere
anything
handy.
more than $1,000 from cryptocurrency, because that would be painful.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And we've heard, there are stories of people forgetting their passwords, not knowing their seed phrases. I read the story online that there was hundred and something $1,000 in someone's wallet, and he couldn't remember the seed. Oh, just terrible.
Right, and the Ledger wallet is very unforgiving. If you put in the wrong passphrase, your 4-digit passphrase, and you get it wrong, you have like what is it, a minute wait, and then if you get it wrong
Oh,
again, you have like a 5-minute wait, and if you get it wrong again, you have like an hour wait, and eventually you're gonna have like a year or two to wait between each
oh
entry.
God.
It's just
You
terrible.
see, keep your seed phrase handy. Do not lose it.
And
This is
really,
why this appealed to me so much.
and really, don't do what I did and chisel your seed phrase into your basement floor. That's not a good idea.
Oh,
Which sort
all
of brings
right.
us to the next topic, Brad, which is
Mm-hmm.
how do we get more people involved in this space? That's the
Mm.
challenge. How do we get more people involved in this space? And what's one of the reasons that, people know about crypto, but what are some of the biggest stumbling blocks? We were talking just before the show, and I was telling Brad that I had 3 people this past week come up to me and say, I'm really interested in this, but I don't understand any of it.
Yep.
And, I hear this a lot, and I know you do as well, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where do those people go to get information? What are some of the things that you've seen, Brad, and like with new people? And I can tell you some of the things I've seen with new people. Um, and I'll let you start and just talk about some of the things you've seen people struggle with that are new to the space.
Yeah, I mean, especially recently with this big boom, I really hear a lot of the same questions over and over, it's pretty common. What is crypto? What makes it its value? Um, how do I purchase it? And what do I do with it? And then once they get past the basics of all of that, then it goes into like, well, um, how long should I hold it? What is staking? What are all these different things? Why would I want to own one over another, and things like that? And it really, what it does is it takes me back to, I was around when the internet first started. Uh, Same questions back then. People
Yep.
didn't understand the internet. I was around when cell phones first came out. People didn't understand it and didn't like cell phone, or not cell phones, but smartphones. People didn't like smartphones. They didn't understand it. And then, what was it? There was something else I was thinking of, and that kind of tells me like, okay, once people start understanding this, it's going to be mainstream. It's going to be a regular thing, and it's going to take off. Just like all of these things that have been complicated. But I think it's just the basics. And right now, everyone's going to YouTube, which is why we wanted to start this channel.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
YouTube is definitely one of the biggest platforms that's being used to educate people um, to what cryptocurrency is, and kind of give them a space to start.
I do have a question for you about the cell phone thing.
Yeah,
Did you have a bag phone?
I did have a back phone. Yep.
You did?
Yes.
I see. I did not, and I'm kind of envious now. I always wanted to use a bag phone just because they look so cool.
I was the only, I think I was 16. Yeah, I was 16 years old because I just got my car. And of course, my mother was worried about me. And even back then, I was the only one with a phone. And I carried this back phone around my car. But people thought it was cool. Like, people were like, that's the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen. You
Did that
can make
have the
calls
flip
from
up
your
antenna?
car. Huh?
Did they have like the flip up antennas on them?
Well, so yeah, you open the bag. It was like a little flip over bag. You open the bag, and the phone would like clip in and clip out. But yeah, it had this little antenna you could pop up.
So you
Uh,
roll up to somebody's house with like your sunroof open and you flip up the antenna.
it wasn't an antenna that went on the top of the car. Yeah, you just flipped it up in the bag. But my mom was like, only using it in emergencies because it's like $1 a minute or something like that. And
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like, okay.
yeah. And now we're on like our phones for 8 hours. Can you imagine if those are bag phones?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You have like a bill of $800 a day.
Mhm.
So yeah, as you said, I think some of the trouble right now with new people entering the space is definitely a couple of the things I wrote down. Absolutely, where do you buy it? Um, why do I want to buy this? That's another one. You know, why would I buy it at all? And it's the jargon and the acronyms. I mean, I'm guilty of this constantly. You know, I use acronyms all the time. Um, and and the other one for me, I think, is the UX, the user experience. Right now, in a lot of these applications, is just not there. I think a lot of people struggle with that. You know, they don't understand what MetaMask is. They don't understand which wallet to use.
Yeah, it's
I
still
think
just
just on this past week's Twitch stream that you had, I think one of your viewers was asking, you know, what do I do with MetaMask now? I have it.
yeah. What's a
How do I
meta?
use it?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you're in the space, it all starts to make you're like, oh, this makes so much sense. This is
Right.
so easy, and that's where I was going back with the cell phone and the internet. Like today, it's like, how could you not know what the internet? Like, how is that? Has it? People didn't. People were scared of it. It just
Yeah.
the thought of being like this worldwide thing, and people are like, I don't understand. Just too much, too much. And they did, you know, that's what I was saying. They did it with the smartphone. The smartphone was too much. I just want to dial. I don't care about all these
Exactly.
things. Well, now it's like, well, where's all my, where's all my apps? I need more apps. I need more, and it's a common thing. But yeah, when people don't understand it, it's very scary to get into. But when you're in it, it makes so much sense. And I think when we can get people past that, when understanding a wallet, which is people aren't used to a hardware wallet, once you get past that, once you get past some of the misconceptions of what you do with it, um, I think it'll be big. It's going to be big. I think we already know that. But how do you get that? How do you get people to start adopting that?
I think PayPal is taking a step in the right direction. Um, Being that they have such a big audience, you know, they have such a big customer base,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that they integrated, you know, they sort of integrated crypto into allow you to buy it through your PayPal account. I think that is a step in the right direction.
Oh yeah.
But I think when you step outside that comfort zone of something like PayPal and you get into things like MetaMask, or you get into things like Trust Wallet, or you have wallets on Coinbase or, you know, Gemini or one of these sites, I think you start to step out of that comfort zone. And the problem, I think, inherently in cryptocurrency that's happened since I've been in it is you always have this clash, it seems like, between the creators of the products, the engineers,
Mm-hmm.
and you have no marketing and you have no sales. You have no traditional marketing and sales teams. And I think you're starting to see more of that with some of these new modern projects. But I think you still have a predominant engineering focus. And I think what happens then is you lose some of that UX design, you lose some of that user focus, and people simply cannot use it. They don't understand how to use it. And then you start to mix jargon and acronyms, and you think the other big one that I wanted to mention is people think, and you probably get this a lot, people still think you need to buy a full unit of one coin.
Right. Right.
And I can't tell you how many times somebody has said to me, well, it's too late for me to get in. I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I spoke with somebody just recently and I said, you need to think in fractions, you know, think in fractions and not just whole numbers.
Right.
Because I think with our currency, the way it is now, you know, we can think in fractions, but it's very limited. You know, we have, you know, there's just 100 pennies in a dollar. Whereas with Bitcoin, there's 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. So you have many, many more fraction spaces to think in. So I told people, you know, I said, you can buy $8 worth of Bitcoin.
Mm.
And they're like, wow, I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you know, you can tell that they get a little bit more interested when they realize that they actually have a chance to buy some and not have to buy a full Bitcoin for $49,000. And then there's the other thing too. You know, there's there's a lot of common critiques that people hear. You know, this has been used for illicit activities, and
Mhm.
there's so many myths out there. So the one thing I want to do is I want to point people to a website, which I highly recommend taking a look at if you're new. And it's called casebitcoin.com. It runs through, explains it to you like you're a new user. And that's exactly what this site was designed for. It was designed to onboard new users.
Mhm.
It explains where Bitcoin came from, the concepts. It even breaks down a lot of the reasons to invest. It breaks down thinking in fractions and not whole numbers. And it breaks down a lot of the jargon and the acronyms that we constantly use. And so I recommend casebitcoin.com, CASE bitcoin.com. And I'll put that up on the show notes.
Very nice. Okay. Well, I didn't. You know what? We should do that on the Twitch live, huh?
It's a great website. I pointed a few people to it. They came back and they said, wow, that is a really nice resource.
Hmm.
And I recommend people take a look at that if they're new. Because without people adopting it, you know, we can, you know, you and I will be in this space, but I think you need that many more people to adopt it for it to become something that that takes off.
Yeah, which I think is inevitable, but you know, how late to the game are you going to be? So,
Exactly.
um, you know, I think the writing will be on the wall. Everyone's going to be in this space at some point. They're probably gonna. They may even be forced into having to use crypto in some form or another to buy something or pay for this or whatever. But you know, how late do you want to get before you know you adopt that technology? Everyone had to sell their Blackberries at some point. You know, so
Exactly. Yeah.
there were some people who waited to the last second to get rid of that Blackberry. So you know, just how late do you want to hang on?
And then the other thing I think is worth mentioning is only invest in this space in a responsible way. You know,
Mhm.
put in what you actually can afford to lose. And I think that's something that, you know, I've heard that. I can't tell you how many times since I've been, you know, involved in the space, is that I've heard that hundreds of times. Only invest what you can afford to lose, and pick a strategy. Pick a strategy that works for you. Um, you know, there is certainly nothing wrong with investing $10 a month in digital currencies. You don't need to put big money down. Pick something that works for you, and pick a percentage of what you want to invest in.
Yep.
And I think that's also important, because there will be drops. That's inevitable. It's going to happen, guaranteed. And you definitely don't want to take a second mortgage out on your house and buy as much Bitcoin as possible, because that was something that wrecked a lot of people back in 2017.
Oh, really? Well, they should have just held.
They should have, and they actually, sadly, bought it at, you know, probably 18, 19,000, and then sold, you know, when it would drop back down to 11,000
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
after selling their house.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
So responsible, I guess,
Mhm.
is probably a really good word.
Yep.
Um, and again, we'll put the links up on the show notes. Anything else to add on that, Brad, that you can think of for new people?
Nope. I think just getting once the understanding sinks in, and once you know the market starts utilizing it more, and we're already seeing it with Mastercard and then all these other companies, it's just going to do it itself.
Yeah,
It's just how late
absolutely.
you want. Like I said, I think it's how late you want to be. You're eventually going to have to learn it. You know, it'd be great. We're wanting to put up space online so we can help people get there. Um, I definitely want to help people. I'm trying to help people in my life all the time,
Hmm.
but I think eventually it'll just be a matter of time before you know, and it gets easier. It keeps getting easier and easier. Um, So we'll see the transition happening. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, we'll see a huge transition.
Yeah, I agree. I think once companies start to develop better interfaces and the ability for people to understand how to use it, I think you're going to start to see a boom in usage. So, cool. So, any final thoughts? I got a couple of items here. Do you have anything?
I do not.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to mention is in Coindesk, and I'm sure a lot of people, maybe some people that are watching, may follow Coindesk. I've been following them now for a couple years. One of my favorite news podcasts, I would call them a podcast. They actually just announced that they have released Coindesk TV, First Mover, which it's on YouTube. You can also go to the coindesk.com and check it out. But it's kind of neat because they have multiple shows throughout the day where they talk about the latest that's occurring, and they usually have a lot of people on as interviews, and talk about what digital assets are impacting the market. And the host of the show, Kristen News, is really good. So I recommend checking that out. And it begins at 9 a.m. Eastern every weekday. So it's quite frequent. The other thing I wanted to mention is a coin that I've been following, which I recommend checking it out. They have not yet released their main product, but Orion Protocol. It seems like every week they're making announcements about more and more partnerships. And I recommend taking a look at this now, because once they actually release their product, which will end up being a liquidity aggregation market, Orion Protocol is actually going to have the capabilities of reaching across different main nets and pulling in market prices. So you'll actually be able to trade all these different exchanges all from one interface. So it's going to be extremely fast. It's going to be cheap fees, and you're going to have the capability of getting the best prices. So it's sort of like it'll be sort of like a 1-inch DEX aggregator, except that it's actually going to reach into and pull from even centralized exchanges like Binance, Kraken, plus all the decentralized finance exchanges.
All right. Good call on Orion. It's on my watch list, but I haven't invested a lot of time or money into it. But it's a good call, though. It has been an interest of mine.
I'm planning on picking some Orion up here soon before it gets too high.
Okay.
And then another thing I did want to mention is a few layer ones. I think we've both talked about these, like Cardano. We've talked about Polkadot. Not so much Cosmos, Avalanche, or Solana, but we have mentioned Algorand. I would keep an eye on those, especially as the Ethereum gas fees continue to increase. I think we're going to see more adoption of Cardano, Polkadot specifically, and the others that I mentioned. And then I would also keep an eye on these layer 2 chains like Matic, Scale, and Loopring. And then I've mentioned in the past, XDay is another chain, another layer 2 I would keep an eye on as well. Last item, I think, for this episode, on February 28th, Brad and I are going to be interviewing Tobias Graf of Just Liquidity, which Brad talked about Joldex earlier. And so we're excited. He will be on the episode on the 28th.
Yep, that's the day after my birthday. Cool. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for another episode of the Crypto Effect. I hope you all enjoyed it. We will be back here next week. And again, remember on the 28th, Tobias interview. So that'll be good, from JewelSwap. Awesome. Thank you, Warren.
Have a good night.
You too.